Welcome to the Lead Up Leadership Podcast. Hear from rising leaders and seasoned leaders across various industries to see about their leadership journey and how you can level up your leadership game. Here's your host, Renato G. Lead up!
All right, we are back with another episode of the Lead Up Leadership Podcast. Very excited about this individual. I've been an admirer and a fan from far away in terms of all the things that he's involved in. This guy's a young, rising leader in the community, not only in Sacramento, but in Davis. So I want to introduce none other than Alejandro Galicia. Welcome to the show. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. Appreciate being on it.
Of course. And before we get into talking about all the things that you're involved in, all the things that you're creating, could you just share a little bit about who you are, your background, maybe a little bit about kind of your story and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess first and foremost, the very first city I grew up in was San Fernando Valley down in SoCal. So I stayed there until like 7th grade. So I got all into the culture, right? I skated. I helped out my parents with work and stuff like that. And then we had to move because rent prices is really tough in LA. So we ended up making a weird decision of moving 6 hours up to Sacramento. That's where I went to Jackman, and then I went to Valley. But I think the single most defining feature of my childhood was always work, right? Like constant work, whether it was selling corn, selling ice cream, selling whatever we had on that. I think that was the biggest single most defining feature, because like at 13 or even 9 I was already I was a cashier. At 13 I was my own boss. At 15 I was purchasing equipment, right? So being able to understand the value of a dollar, and how much effort it takes to earn one.
Yeah, that's huge, man. And now, right, you're a third-year student at UC Davis. Shout out to the Aggies, my alma mater. And man, you've, since the time I've kind of met you in passing, right, through different events, through Improve Your Tomorrow, IYT, just always seeing you involved in some sort of leadership capacity, and it just has continued to grow over time. And we're going to talk about also your experience with MBK, right, My Brother's Keeper, and kind of your moment with Mr. Obama. But before we get to there, could you share a little bit about just some of the things that you're currently involved in, and talk about your recent project also with the DSI?
No, yeah, for sure. Well, let's spend a little time on IYT itself.
Okay. Hey.
Any space I go, I gotta rep the brotherhood.
Yeah.
Because I always say that, like, the person you're seeing right now, it wasn't the one that Michael Lynch had to talk into joining IYT. Or even my two best friends, Kishan and Juan, they talked to me and they sat me down like, hey, join this, like it's gonna be a cool program.
Shout out to Kishan and Juan.
Hey, shout out to Kishan.
Yeah.
And Juan. IYT is the single reason why I even consider going to college, and being able to have the resources on hand to hey, step up, be a leader, and be able to push forward. So anytime I'm in any space, I gotta rep that, right? But for the current work I'm doing, I'm a little involved with the bit, right? And the statewide, I'm involved. I'm a board member with Mentor California, so that enables me to scale up that organization and provide thought leadership around supporting mentoring programs across the state, servicing thousands of students that were like me, right? It took one mentoring relationship with one caring adult for me to be able to take the extra step and go to college. Join a nonprofit board, join different opportunities on hand. And then locally in Sacramento, I'm heavily involved with STEM opportunity programs, meaning that my passion in middle school was always STEM, right? It was always computer science. Learning HTML at like 13 or 12, I don't know, it really captivated me before I met sports. But that little passion never left me, even though my environment politicized me, right? So
Mm.
when we're talking about, quote unquote, the streets, or when we talk about even school, these are systems that politicize you, whether you want it or not, whether it's punitive punishments on school campuses, or is your homies on the streets, whether you're feeling proud that you made it out, or you're feeling guilty for leaving those behind. um so that's kind of the thing I'm doing with this eyes, where I'm providing an opportunity for youth to get a programmable robot, learn code from undergraduate and master candidates, um, to be able to have a restorative justice approach to STEM, because oftentimes STEM has been a place of trauma and shame. And that's not because of our own fault or inability to engage in those spaces. And when I say us, I mean people of color. Um, but that's a lack in the system that's not providing us with uh, cultural specific curriculum and trauma informed. And that's something I want to change. And I like to think we're the frontier of
Mm.
innovative practices for STEM education. It's all free of charge. We're partnered up with the Donald A. Strauss Foundation to be able to fund this off, and even with IYT, y'all provide
Mm.
the Zoom logins, y'all provide critical TA support. So I'm just excited to be able to serve 100 youth
Yeah.
throughout this year, and all free of charge, and then just providing them an opportunity to explore what they like. We do, 2 week virtual camps. We do mini hackathons. We're planning a culminating hackathon in May, where we'll be
Nice.
inviting, professional computer scientists, whether it's, undergrads, master candidates, or
Hmm.
folks already in the field, to come on and register alongside the team, but with a small twist that within their team, they have to take on 2 youth. So the youth are able to get that immersive experience of professional or collegiate level programmers, and just see how they act, how they problem solve, how to create those programs that
Hmm.
are leading and changing systems, whether that's tech, philanthropy, or nonprofit.
Hmm.
And then recently, I actually got into philanthropy. So
Mm.
with the Sierra Health Foundation, and I can't see the grant
Right. Right.
because we're still in the midst. So I'm an external reviewer,
Uh-huh.
and that enables me to um, be able to inform how or where things get funded, right? So that
Hmm.
enables me to, look at a grant proposal of $1 million, and be able to evaluate it, be able to, advocate on behalf of youth. Like, is this grant providing youth compensation, youth incentives? Is it all going to staff? Whether that's completely viable, right? That's fair. Nonprofits need the capacity building, but oftentimes when you're serving youth, you also got to pay youth.
Hmm.
So that's an exciting part that I get to do with philanthropy, um, and on student and my campus community. I'm really, my heart, my identity is within the immigrant community.
Hmm.
I think it took me a long time to be able to come to terms with it and be able to
Mm.
be brave enough and proud enough to advocate on behalf of my community. So now on campus, I get to lead a committee, a student government committee entirely dedicated to providing basic needs services for undocumented students and AB 540 students.
That's
So
awesome.
whether that's books, supplies, cap and gowns, undergraduate to postdoctoral gowns, and even scholarships,
Hmm.
much needed resources to do so. And I've been blessed to have incredible partners and being able to pass um, a fund where we're able to give like $50,000 away in
Wow.
scholarships to like students. I think
Hmm.
that's incredible, right? Being
Yeah.
able to be a liaison and student government, but also being able to prove and
Hmm.
deliver on that promise.
Yeah. That's great, man. And it's just amazing to hear all the things that you're doing. And again, it's funny if you I don't know if you probably do recall because it just happened last week when we were on that call with some of the students, and I think you hopped on about like halfway, and then there was a student, a first year student, who was like, "Hey, are you Alejandro from Valley, and did you play baseball? And
Hey, shout
he
out
was
to
just
the
like,
brother.
yes, shout out to the brotherhood. And he was like, bro, I looked up to you, man. Like you were a Latino man playing baseball. You were super involved in a lot of things, and man, I looked up to you. And for me, that was like, obviously super organic moment, and just like, wow, like that's amazing. And you were just like, man, hopefully I can live up to that, right? And for me, my next question to you, as you talked about your community involvement, and as the point and purpose behind these podcasts really to share knowledge, information, and some experiences that can help other people, right? Especially young leaders like yourself. How has community involvement impacted your leadership, and how could it potentially impact, positively, I would say, someone else's leadership?
No, I think for me, community is at the heart of my leadership. Being able to be as at service to somebody or to something. I think that's at the core of my definition of being a leader. And then when we're talking about that brother, right?
Yeah.
Like he sees me in a completely different light than I even see myself, or I
Right.
saw myself in high school. Like I never would have thought that like a brother would have, shown interest or even looked up to me, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and whether you're quote unquote a leader or in spaces of power, being able to challenge and provide an opportunity for those who look up to you. Like
Mm-hmm.
on the chat I was like, hey brother, like here's my number, if
Yeah.
anything comes up you text me.
Yeah.
And then if he texts me, I'll make him set up a time, but like a week from now. So being able to deliver on time, being able to stay committed to the grind, because oftentimes when you're reaching out to folks,
Mm-hmm.
it takes a follow-up, right? It
Yeah.
takes those different things. So being able to
Yeah.
provide that learning experience to everybody you come with, I think is key. And when you're involving in this community leadership roles, oftentimes the biggest thing is being able to provide those resources you didn't have,
Yeah.
whether those resources are opportunities or challenges. So as a youth, I'd never been challenged. As a youth, I never had the opportunity to do more than what was asked of me, and what was asked of me was very little, right? Uh, so when I encounter or when I enter spaces of community, I often challenge. I often provide those opportunities to grow and fail. Oftentimes the biggest lesson is not being able to complete a test, right? Like why couldn't you? What could you do better? Constantly being on the grind to do more. But with the small pivot that we do live in systems that ask too much of us, and being able to take a step back and relax. Not that I do such a great job at it, right? But when we're boys and men of color, we had to do more, and we had to do a lot more than others, right? But disregarding the health isn't one of those that we
Yeah.
should prioritize.
Yeah, man, dropping gems right now, man. And speaking of boys and men of color and opportunities, you actually had an opportunity. I don't know if it was a year or 2 years ago now. Time has flown by, but you actually got an opportunity to not only meet Obama, but actually ask a question, right? Could you recall a little bit about that experience and kind of like, yeah, what was going through your mind? Yeah, talk to us about that, man.
Man, like the night before, I slept like a baby, right? Like I wasn't expecting this. I slept good. I woke up
Yeah.
good. I was feeling like the type of, well, I wasn't even feeling the type of world. I was just feeling, at the
You
time
were at
I
peace.
thought it was numbness,
Okay.
but I feel like now looking back, I was just like on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I know what to do. I know my question. I know what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just focus.
Mm-hmm.
And then the idea there was like thousands of people in an auditorium, which was 2 stories high. It was like that for me. I'm looking back. I was 17,
Wow.
right? I was, I was 17 or 18, and then to
Mm-hmm.
be able to do that in front of that many like
Yeah.
people, like
Yeah.
I remember back when the first time Michael Lynch asked me to speak at a small community event.
Yeah.
Bro, I tell you, I stutter. I have a problem with like I
Mm.
stutter.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't get my words out. I was red, and being able to go from that kid to being able to ask President Obama a straight answer, adding a little joke to it, adding a
Yeah. I
little
remember that.
like
Yeah.
environment to it, being able to shout out my community, my community being able to be receptive.
Mhm.
Uh, I think it's a big difference, but it's a testament to others giving me the opportunity to challenge and fail
Yeah.
from the start. If that was my very first opportunity speaking, oh my
Yeah.
god,
Right, right,
national
right.
news, that was never gonna leave me. But I think it's surreal. Like I really met Obama, right? Like I really got to stand on the same stage as him, and Steph Curry too. I have a picture with them.
Right.
I was on the Now This, so there was like millions of people that saw it. I
Yeah.
was like on national television. It's surreal. Like being able to come from like the environments we come from. It just
Hmm.
like it still doesn't feel real.
Man, man. And I love where you're going with this because, you know, in people in those maybe moments or experiences or, potential positions, that level of success can get to their head, right? Can impact them maybe potentially negatively, right? And, when you talk about that, obviously you seem very grateful and still very humble. Like, how do you continue to, with such accolades, right? And different things that you're being involved in, how do you continue to stay grounded? And how can other people stay grounded and not get so carried away with maybe moments like that, if that makes sense?
No, yeah, man, I think I just read right like I like in middle school. Like I was no not elementary. I was bullied because my parents were corn people,
You
right?
said you
Like
were a
they were
bully?
Lateros. So I was bullied
Oh,
in
you were bullied.
elementary.
Okay, gotcha,
I was
gotcha.
nah, nah, I was the
Yeah,
one
I was like,
being
what?
bullied. Nah. Uh, so I was bullied for the occupation that my parents engaged with, right?
Mm,
And then so I would walk out those halls and I would feel ashamed of what my parents did. And to this day I feel guilty for ever feeling that, right? Like I cannot be more proud than ever of my parents. And then that grind for a work ethic and to do better never left, right? So oftentimes I feel that the presence of ego is the absence of a work ethic and
mm,
of a history of of struggle. You see leading figures that come from our neighborhoods, like whether you see LeBron always staying humble or whether asking for his respect, right? um
right, right.
which I think is both valid, right? Like you can have confidence and demand your
Hmm.
respect but still being humble enough to know that there's still more to learn.
Yeah.
There's still more to gain. And I think for me, uh my my humility comes from my parents, but it also comes from the feeling of guilt of those that are still behind me, right? Like
Hmm.
there's still so much more than I could do that, I'm one of thousands of boys and men of color.
Yeah.
Uh, and if you look at the statistics, I'm what, like a part of the 20 something percent that was able to go to college, like
Mm,
within the teen percent of that was able to go to a UC. Like that's
hmm.
just sad. I think that's sad. I should not be an anomaly. I
Hmm.
should be, part of the staple.
Right, right.
So I think that's where it comes from for me.
Yeah, man, I love that answer. Staying humble, and I love what you said about the ego, absence of work ethic, man. Yeah, that's huge. And as you continue to stay humble and know that there's more to learn, how do you personally um, stay motivated, and how do you stay on top of your game with all that you got going on, right? Being a full-time student and all the different things that you're going, how do you stay on top of that and still find the capacity to learn and grow?
Hmm. Man, like I'm telling you, like the biggest lesson my parents ever gave me was work ethic, right? Like that was the biggest
Hmm.
value they placed on me. Like at 9 I was a full-time cashier. At 13 I was my own boss. At 15 I was buying equipment.
Hmm.
So I think that just never left. Like there's no day I feel uncomfortable going, like taking a day off. Like I feel like there's
Hmm.
something to do. Which isn't right. I should be able to
Hmm.
relax, right? But that's just how I grew up with.
Yeah.
The constant struggle of doing and working.
Hmm.
But lately I've been finding motivation in others that look up to me. So
Hmm.
like recently there was folks over the summer that were asking me for informational videos, informational interviews.
Yeah.
Being able to just at this point of
Right.
of life, being able to have enough knowledge that others want to learn from me, right?
Yeah.
I think it's incredible and humbling experience. Like, damn, like you really want to know something from me? Like
Hmm.
I was in middle school getting overlooked by teachers when I was raising my hands. And
Wow.
now folks are emailing me to schedule a time to learn from me.
Hmm.
I think that transition is beautiful. Um, and I think that pushes me to do better and to
Hmm.
live up to that, right? Like the brother,
Hmm.
he was looking up to me from high school, and I just
Right.
hope like I live up to it. Like there's been folks that disappointed me, and
Hmm.
I don't want to be those folks. And I think the last thing I want to bring up with that is that when I did the Obama thing,
Hmm.
nothing within me changed aside
Mm.
from believing more of me, but how my community saw me, how the people surrounding me saw me, completely
Hmm.
changed.
Wow.
Like they expected a lot more from me, and I think that they continue to drive me. I'm in a position where I have like a certain amount of privilege now to do the work I get to do, to be able to have comfort to do that work.
Hmm.
So that always pushes me to do more, because there's others that would do an amazing and even better job than I,
Yeah.
but there's certain life circumstances that prevent them from doing that. So
Yeah.
while I have this privilege, I better use it.
Yeah. That's huge, man. Everything you're saying, man, is just spot on, and just makes me have a better understanding of just, how you're wired, and just, your experiences, and just a lot of respect for you, man. And I love how you talked about, the people behind you, right? This next generation, and even your peers, right? Because you're what, 20 years old,
Yeah,
right?
20. Yeah.
20, right? You just turned 20. It was your birthday
Yeah.
recently, right? So, um, what advice would you give to other young leaders like yourself, whether it's your peers or even the next generation coming behind you? Um, what is something, what advice would you give them?
Yeah. Closed mouths don't get fed.
Mm.
Right? That
Talk about that.
like that like I was a shy individual, right? Like I would be hesitant to ask for help. I was hesitant to be receptive of that help. I was hesitant to reach out, to learn new things. And oftentimes I place everything on top of my shoulders. But
Mm.
that comes from, I was a very angry child. I was very closed off. I was very like, I wasn't the person I am now, right? Like me
Right.
laughing,
Yeah.
it's a completely new image
Mm.
than who I was. But and I think, you know, for people that are like 2 years younger than me or a couple of
Right.
years
Yeah.
younger than me,
Right.
the biggest thing is always, if you need something, ask for it. If you got something to say it. I think oftentimes, whether the streets or the school system grooms us to believe that our opinions don't matter or that
Mm.
we have nothing to say. But then you come to learn, whether you're in community spaces, philanthropy or other things, we're valued as boys and men of color. Now we're being seeked out, right?
Right.
Now
Right.
that's a change that we didn't see that when we were growing up. Uh, so being able
True.
to capitalize on that is key. So
Hmm.
always voice your opinion. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
That's huge, man. I love it. Closed mouths don't get fed. And man, as we start, man, I wish we keep going, but as we kind of wrap up
Yeah.
this session, what's next for you? What are you hoping to? I mean, what are you hoping to accomplish in the next year, 5 years? What does that look like for Alejandro?
It's crazy.
Right.
Well, I think the most recent thing is just getting more funding for DSI to continue that another year.
Hmm.
I'm doing research on the disproportionate distribution of grades
Hmm.
within COVID. So hopefully we could, I'm able to do that and present on it. But I think just down the line, I want to go to a master's program. I want to continue learning. I feel like I'm a lifetime student. Uh, And I don't know, like lately I've been just like there's been a lot of good in my life lately. There's a lot of blessings that I'm just really grateful for.
Hmm.
Um and yeah, I don't know. I think, you know, I I just want to serve, right? Like at the end of the
Yeah.
day, I just want to be able to leave the doors open when I move on to something else. So I
Nice.
think that's always been the guiding thing.
That's huge, man. Just saying everything right, Alejandro. And if people want to uh, email you or set up those informational interviews or just kind of pick your brain, right? Or
Right.
just shout you out, just show you some love. How can they do that?
Follow me on Twitter. I got Alejandro IRL, so Alejandro in real life. I also got LinkedIn, where you can see my email. It's the same, Alejandro IRL. And then with email, if you want to set up a time, just like Alejandro that Galicia without an I at gmail.com. Pretty open to it.
Cool. Yeah, awesome. And I guess just because I feel like you got so much to say, do you have any last words that, whether it's advice or just like a thought that you have that you just want to put out to the world? Yeah.
Don't change yourself for whatever synchronizes you're on. Because oftentimes, I'm speaking to boys and men of color, whether we're in workspaces, we're told that we're not professional enough. When we're in school, we're told we're a little too loud. When we're entering different spaces, we're told to be different, change. But I think our value and our self-worth comes into who we are. So don't ever change that. Code switch, right? Like that's a thing. Mm-hmm. But always stay authentic to yourself.
Yeah. Yep. I love it, man. Stay authentic to yourself. Alejandro, thank you so much for this amazing session. I'm excited for all the things that you're currently doing and what you're going to be doing in the future. And hopefully, we can do like a follow-up to see, what are you doing now? But until then, that was another episode of the Lead Up Leadership Podcast with Alejandro Galicia. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Of course.